This isn't just a UFC card, this is a betting gold mine. I haven't lost for the last 10 weeks betting on MMA, and you bet ya I'm gonna do it again this week. And I am back to help you do the exact same thing when the UFC returns to Vegas this weekend. We have David Onama taking on Steve Garcia in a banger matchup that is surely gonna bring fireworks like every single other Steve Garcia or David Onama fight does. We got Jeremiah Wells taking on Themba Gorimbo in a co-main event matchup of two absolute powerhouses of the welterweight division. We also have an absolute grappler's delight at flyweight. We have Alan Nascimento taking on Rafael Estevan. Waldo Cortes-Acosta is taking on newcomer Ante Delija in a heavyweight matchup that is sure to see somebody getting hurt or rocked. And not only them fights, I'm going to go through the entire card and break down every single fight from the main event to the first fight of the night. And I know a bunch of people are looking at this card saying, it's not a very good card. But I don't care what type of card it is. As long as I can make some money on it, I'm gonna be there. So let's run the intro and I'll see you on the other side. So welcome back to another edition of the Lucrative MMA Betting Show. We have now expanded this show so you get breakdowns from me for every single fight on the card, as well as fight footage throughout the entire show for the fights, not only on the main card, but also the prelims. So we're stepping up our game as always, boys. And if you appreciate the hard work that goes in from me and my team to create these shows for you, and most importantly, put them out early with the high level editing, then I would very much appreciate it if you like and subscribe. It's free, but it helps out a lot. And speaking about early shows, boys, so I'm recording this on a Wednesday, more than a week before the fights. This is 10 days before the fight. So we haven't even gone through UFC 321 yet. Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane fight in a couple of days. So I don't know how we done on that event. I'm hoping we win. I'm feeling confident, but we will see. But before that event, as it stands right now, I am 10 weeks undefeated. Everybody inside the elite zone has not lost for 10 weeks. So I'm aiming for 12 weeks, boys. If we can go 12 weeks without having even one losing week, it will be the best gambling run of my entire life. So hopefully you have me in your prayers. I want to see some positive comments throughout my YouTube to help motivate me to make this a reality, because I'm not only going to do it myself, I'm going to try and bring you on board with me. As always, if you want my actual official bets, the link is in the bio for that. But the actual breakdowns, I'm giving them to you right now for free. So I hope you enjoy it, boys. I put a lot of work into this card. So without further ado, let's speak about the main event. And it is Steve Garcia taking on David Onama. Steve Garcia coming into this fight with a record of 18 wins, 5 losses. David Onama, on the other hand, has a record of 14 wins and 2 losses. Currently, they have this fight almost a good old-fashioned pick'em. They have David Onama as the very slight favorite at minus 115 odds, with the underdog price tag on Steve Garcia coming back at minus 105. And man, oh man, what a matchup this is. This is honestly an absolute banger of a main event. Now, I listened to Steve Garcia's interview that he did with MMA Junkie, and he was saying that a lot of people online are complaining about this main event. Somebody who was not complaining about this main event was me, because this fight is a crazy war. Now, I understand MMA fans saying it's not worthy of a main event, but the fight itself is a great fight. I think somebody's going to get hit hard in this fight. Actually, I think both fighters are getting hit hard. I think somebody's going to get dropped. I'm predicting knockdowns in this fight. I'm predicting potentially multiple knockdowns. I might even be predicting both fighters to get knocked down. Like, that is the type of fight this is. This is going to be an absolute war. And I'm going to break it down from a stylistic perspective for you right now. But before we get into that, let's speak about the training situation. So upon my research, I've seen that David Onama is training specifically with Justin Gaethje for this fight. You can see it on his Instagram right here. And he's getting in some solid rounds with one of the heaviest hitters in a lightweight division. So I think that's going to do him very well going up against a featherweight fighter in Steve Garcia, who hits very hard. Honestly, if I could name one person that you would want to spar in preparation for Steve Garcia, Justin Gaethje would be right up there. So Onama being over there at Factory X and getting him rounds with Justin Gaethje, I think will stand him in good stead going into this fight. In this very video, you can also see David Onama getting in some rounds with Yusuf Salam. We know the trajectory that guy is on in the UFC. You know, he's probably going to be in line for a title shot in his next couple of fights. So Onama's definitely getting good rounds in. Steve Garcia is also getting his rounds in over there at Jackson Wink, but I can't say it will be to the same level of David Onama. But if we speak about stylistically, I mean, this fight's a banger. Steve Garcia has been a legend from day one. He really has. Steve Garcia has been an outright banger from day one. You go back, and I did this, boys, and you go back and watch some of his old fights, like Chepe Mariscal in LFA. And this was back in 2020, guys. You're talking 5 years ago. The guy fights even more reckless than he fights today, which is kind of crazy because the guy is still extremely reckless. But go back and watch that fight. Within 10 seconds of round one, he almost landed a brutal knockout over Chepe Mariscal, dropped him very heavy. And we know how tough Chepe is, so he was able to survive that. That's one of the best 8-minute fights outside of the UFC that you will ever watch. I definitely recommend everybody go and watch that fight if you want some entertainment this week. Something very interesting to note about that fight is that was one fight after his Dana White's Contender Series fight where he got a first round knockout but didn't get signed by Dana White. And the reason he didn't get signed is because he missed weight at bantamweight. Now, if you go back and watch that subsequent fight against Chepe Mariscal, right, that's obviously at his natural weight class, which is featherweight. He looks a weight class bigger than Chepe Mariscal. He looks massive. And that was coming off after being in a bantamweight contest. I don't know how this guy used to fight at bantamweight. This guy is a massive featherweight. So I'm glad he's at his right weight class now. He should have never fought a bantamweight during those times. 2019 was the time he fought a bantamweight. I feel like he was way too big for the bantamweight division at that time. And he has even said on one of his recent interviews that I listened to that the UFC PI really helped him out with his weight cuts. He doesn't actually live in Vegas, but he goes to the PI regularly as a contact in the PI. And I didn't actually know this. I don't know if you knew this, but you don't actually have to live in Vegas to have a contact with the PI. Like, you can get your meals sent to you if you're not that far out of Vegas. And you can also have a contact at the PI that you speak to that helps you, that sends you supplements if you're just in USA in general. So he makes a lot of use of that, as he said, and now he's making his weight easy. He's a big featherweight. And coming in here against Onama, he's going to need his size because Onama is a beast of his own right. Onama's physicality is kind of crazy in the octagon. If we watch some of his fights, namely the fight against Jonathan Pierce, I mean, he's taken down in that fight, he's controlled in that fight, but he uses raw physicality to spin out of the back positions multiple times and just raw physicality to stop takedowns, stuff takedowns, and when he is taken down, get back up to his feet. This guy is a featherweight, but again, a very big, strong, tough featherweight. We go back and look at the Nate Landwehr fight. One of the best fights I've ever seen. He almost kills Nate Landwehr in round one. Nate Landwehr comes back in round two and has a massive round, a 10-8 round in round two. Gets positions in the grappling on David Onama that look dangerous, but Onama just stands up. Onama just uses his physicality after being hurt on the feet and just simply stands up. He's like got that Derek Lewis jiu-jitsu where it's just get up. But he's got it in the featherweight division, which is crazy. These are two specimens fighting each other. Make no mistake about it. Something that can be seen in both of their fights is they're both a bit chinny. They both get dropped a lot. Let's go back and look at David Onama's last fight against Giga Chikadze. He got rocked in that fight. Look at his fight against Nate Landwehr that I told you about. He got hurt in that fight. Look at his Mason Jones fight. He got hurt a couple of times. Look at his Roberto Romero fight in round one. By the way, boys, one of the best round ones in UFC history was Romero versus Onama round one. Roberto Romero hurts Onama badly in the middle of round one. Onama comes back and hurts him at the end of that round, but it goes back to what I've been saying. David Onama is getting hurt, dropped, wobbled in almost all of his fights. Somehow, he's never been finished. Never been finished, which is crazy when I'm watching his tape because it looks like he's going to be finished in almost every fight. And he ends up winning most of those fights. You go back and look at Steve Garcia, and it's the exact same thing, boys. Steve Garcia is getting hurt in almost all of his fights. Look at that Shia Lin Becky fight. Shia Lin drops him with a massive shot in the very first round. He ends up finishing Shia Lin with a brutal body shot. Same goes for his fight with Charlie Ontiveros. He gets hurt badly there and ends up, finishing Charlie. Same goes for his fight against Mahashate. He gets knocked out in the very first round, within a minute and a half or something it was, he gets KO'd. And those three fights were literally one after the other. So the guy's getting hurt in a lot of, and there's other fights where I haven't mentioned, the guy's getting hurt in all fights, but again, he wins most of those fights. So I can't see how this fight isn't going to be a fight where both fighters get hurt, or at least one fighter gets. So like someone's getting hurt in this fight. The lines are currently almost a pick'em. There's no way I'm playing any money lines in this spot. It's impossible. Steve, in my opinion, is going to go out there, put the pace on, put the pressure on. He's going to be the one walking forward, as he always is. And Steve doesn't look that clean. Honestly, he doesn't. But man, he has variety in where he punches. Like, he will punch to the side of the head, you know, he'll throw hooks, he'll throw uppercuts, he'll throw straights to the body, uppercuts to the body, hooks to the ribs. Like, he has a lot of variety in his boxing, and he has crazy power. I believe he has crazy power. But I can say the same for David Onama. And I think David Onama is a little bit more of a clean technical striker. Doesn't mean he's going to win, but it does mean he's a little bit more clean and technical. I feel like he'll be able to land his shots maybe faster and earlier, but Steve starts out so hot. So it's really just going to be a gunfight. In my opinion, it's going to be a gunfight. And it's like whoever can take the shots, man. You know, it seems to me that maybe Onama has a better chin. One thing I've noticed about Onama, though, is that when he gets hurt, he actually wrestles and takes his opponents down. I do think he has the wrestling upside in this matchup, and we have to talk about that a little bit. Steve Garcia can be taken down. He can be grappled a little bit, and Onama has been grappling a lot more recently. You know, in the Roberto Romero fight, he got only one official takedown, but he actually got on top of Romero in every single round. They was like come off knockdowns and slips and stuff like that. And then in the Giga Jukatsi fight, he wrestled a lot. So maybe Onama can go to his wrestling here, but at the end of the day, he's not really a wrestler. I don't think he's going to be able to just wrestle for 3 rounds. So I think at some point it's going to be a gunshot and someone's going to get knocked out. I'm going to predict this is so tough, boys. Like, it really, really is. This is a pick'em. It's a pick'em fight for a reason. I'm going to pick David Onama to get the knockout just because, I mean, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. I guess I've seen Steve Garcia knocked out before, and I've seen Steve Garcia dropped a couple of more times than I've seen Onama dropped. I've seen Onama hurt a lot, but I've seen him dropped less than Steve Garcia, and Steve has been knocked out, whereas Onama hasn't. So, you know, and I guess he's got slightly better training partners, David Onama, maybe a better stylistic training partners for this fight. So I'm going to pick him for those reasons, but I'm not confident, and there's no way I'm betting David Onama here. Boys, as I say, it's very important. My predictions and my breakdowns are not my official bets. Oftentimes, I will bet against my breakdown. I bet on Davis and Figueiredo 2 weeks ago, but I was actually predicting Montel Jackson to win the fight. You know, if you put a gun to my head, I would have said Montel Jackson. I probably even picked him on this video. I don't know. Go back and listen to it. But I said that Figgy has big value in his money line, and the way to make money from sports betting is to bet where you think the value is, right? The way to understand what value is, watch my videos, watch my breakdowns. I'm not going to go into it today. But you need to bet where the value is. You don't bet on who you think's going to win. So if you listen to my breakdowns, it doesn't mean that's who you should bet if I'm picking them to win. Please understand this. This is professional sports betting. This is not a random YouTube pick channel. If you want to get all of my bets directly, you know where to go. The link is in the bio. My breakdowns are one thing, my bets are another. And my breakdown for this fight is Onama's going to win, but I am not betting on David Onama. I'll probably bet an under, though. I'm telling you, one of those. I haven't done it yet because the odds are not even out, but I'll probably bet an under 1.5 rounds, an under 2.5, someone by knockout, ends KO, something like that. I think this fight's going to be a war, and I think someone's going down. My pure prediction for the pure pick guys will be David Onama, but what a great fight. In the next fight on the card, we have Jeremiah Wells taking on Themba Gorimbo. Jeremiah Wells coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. Themba Gorimbo, on the other hand, 14 wins and 5 losses. Currently, they have Themba Gorimbo as a -175 favorite with the underdog price tag on Jeremiah Wells coming back at +150. Yeah, so this is like battle of the powerhouses in the welterweight division, as I said in the intro. You know, both of these guys are extremely physical for the weight class. Both of these guys are extremely powerful for the weight class. You know, I'd say Jeremiah Wells is a lot more of a physical specimen, to be honest. I'd say that he has a lot more power in his hands, like raw power, raw athleticism, raw explosivity. I would put on the side of Jeremiah Wells for sure, but Themba Gorimbo can match him to some degree, and a lot of people in the welterweight division just can't. That's really what Jeremiah Wells is, you know. He's like a ball of explosivity. He's a ball of energy. You know, when I watch him fight, I don't see anything particularly impressive in his technicality. You know, I don't think he has great boxing. I don't think he has a great jab. I don't think he has great distance management. I don't think he has great kicks, great technique on almost any of his strikes on the feet, to be honest, and that's all due respect to him. But I do think that he has extreme power, extreme athleticism. I think he's very fast. And I think he can close distance very well, although he might not have great distance management. He can close distance very well. I mean, we go look back at that fight against Wally Alves and the fight against Court McGee, and the way he was closing distance to land his shots in that fight was so fast that he turned both of their lights off. In the Carlston Harris fight, I mean, he was grappling Carlston Harris and he was winning until he wasn't. And the way he shot into a lot of those takedowns were extremely fast, extremely athletic. And it's not easy to stop a guy like that, even if you're better technically than him. The issue to me with Jeremiah Wells is that he's 38 years old now, and I believe I've seen a deterioration in some of his performances in his last few fights. I mean, the Max Griffin performance last time out wasn't a good performance. You know, he didn't look good in that fight. He looked even more off balance than usual. You know, there was one moment or two moments in the first round where he shot a big overhand. He missed it, but he was able to like fall into a takedown because he's so strong. And the same thing happened to him later in that round where Max Griffin kind of threw a shot, fell into a takedown and was able to take Jeremiah Wells down because he was off balance as well. So it was kind of like a sloppy fight, an untechnical fight of two older, aging guys in the division who you could see were deteriorating in their performance, you know. And I do feel like Jeremiah Wells has probably seen his best days. I mean, not only is he 38 years of age, but he has now pulled out from back-to-back fights citing an injury. You know, so 38 years old, in my opinion, in the recent fights, looking like he has deteriorated in his performance. And then his last two fights that were scheduled, he had to pull out from, he had to withdraw from the fights because of injury. One versus Nico Price in 2024, and then a more recent one against Andreas Gustafsson in May of this year. So now he's looking to make the walk against Themba Gorimbo. Is he coming in there healthy? I'm not sure. He trains over there at Marquez MMA with very high-level fighters, Joe Pyfer, Sean Brady. So he's getting the good rounds in, and he has posted on his Instagram that he's been waiting for the UFC to call him as far back as 11 weeks ago. You know, so I am expecting him to come in here heavily trained, ready for the fight, but maybe his body isn't there anymore. Gorimbo, on the other hand, is a lot more put together than someone like Jeremiah Wells. You know, I don't believe he's the most put together fighter of all time. And when I say put together, what I mean by that, you know, how is his technical striking? How is his process? You know, does he go out there with a good game plan? Jeremiah Wells goes out there and he just likes to swing hammers and try and get top position. And if he can't do that, he resorts to spinning back elbows and spinning back kicks, which he's not even good at, like he did in the first round against Max Griffin. And he's off balance and stuff. Themba Gorimbo is not off balance. You know, a lot of the time he's in there. He's got a high guard. He throws good 1-2s. His striking looks decent. He's got good grappling. You know, he out-grappled Ramiz Brahimaj with ease, and Brahimaj is on a run after that fight. So shout out to him. That's a good win. He's easily out-grappled Nico Price. Also was beating him up on the feet as well. It was a little bit hairy in end of round 2. He looked to be getting tired, but round 3 just grappled him again. He took his back multiple times. Took his back in round 1. Put a rear naked choke in. Took his back in round 3. Even went for a Suluev stretch. I don't think Jeremiah Wells would ever go for a leg lock attack like that, you know. So I feel like Themba Gorimbo is a lot more technical, but it's not always the more technical fighter that wins. There's a lot of other things that come into play, you know, the mental aspect of the game. Like I said with Jeremiah Wells, age. One of the reasons we cashed on Julia Palastri to knock out Karolina Kowalkiewicz in round 3 at plus 1,200 odds a couple of weeks ago was because of the age, you know, because Karolina's like pushing 40 and Julia's in her prime at this point in time. So yeah, there's a lot of other things that go into a fight. Something that's worth mentioning as well is that Themba Gorimbo is coming off a brutal loss against Vicente Luque where he got choked out in about a minute or two. Me and the VIP cashed on that fight. We cashed. The fight ends via submission at big odds, like plus 450 or something like that. So I was happy to see it cash, but Themba Gorimbo took that loss very heavily. You know, he's actually gone on Zimbabwe podcast talking about the defeat, saying it affected him a lot. And he actually has said that his own cousins were celebrating his loss, you know, and that obviously hit him very hard. Something else I noticed, which was very interesting to me, and we're going to watch it together, boys. During my research, I found out that Themba Gorimbo actually has Vicente Luque's picture as his phone screensaver. So the picture of Vicente Luque choking him out is his screensaver. And the reason is because he says he never wants it to happen to him again. But it was definitely a strange thing for me to witness. So let's watch this one together, boys.
Like if you look at my phone, my wallpaper, this is my wallpaper, right? This is Luque, that's me. It's sad, but it is that you see that's my wallpaper. You see, like I put this on my phone. Why? Because never again. In my head, I don't want to ever be like this again.
There we go. So he said it was the embarrassment. He doesn't want that to ever happen to him again. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not a psychologist. Everybody deals with loss differently. Some people may respond very well to loss. Some people respond poorly. Maybe that motivates him every day. But maybe that's in his mind psychologically too much and he comes in here and doesn't perform well. Like I said, I'm not a psychologist. I just thought it was interesting information. And as always, boys, I try to give you as much information as possible to beat the bookies. I am going to side with Themba Gorimbo on this one, though. Like I said, Stylistically, he is a lot more put together. Jeremiah Wells has a bit of a dodgy chin, in my opinion. He has been hurt multiple times by multiple people at this point in time. He got hurt by Matthew Semmelsberger a lot. You know, he got dropped in that fight all over the place. I'm surprised he made it to a decision. I'm even more surprised that he won that fight. He got caught with some big shots against Carsten Harris and even against Max Griffin, to be honest. So I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. Themba Gorimbo with his sharp hands down the middle, and he's not taking on a guy who is fringe UFC level or on their way out, like Max Griffin, Carsten Harris, Matthew Semmelsberger. He's taken on a legitimate UFC fighter. He's taken on someone who's way more technical than him, that hits decently hard, that will throw straight down the middle. And I could see Themba catching him here. I definitely could. I don't know how he's going to come in mentally, Themba. You know, so that is a wild card in the matchup. But I will take Themba Gorimbo for the win here. On the next fight of the card, we have Waldo Cortes-Acosta taking on Ante Delija. So Waldo is coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, 2 losses. Ante Delija, on the other hand, 26 wins and 6 losses. Currently, they have Waldo Cortes-Acosta, the -141 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Ante Delija coming back at +121. So this is a very interesting fight to me. You know, Waldo Cortes-Acosta is primarily a boxer. You know, we don't see him do too much else in his fights unless he's fighting someone like Roman de Spain, where he just takes him down and grapples him. But outside of that, the guy is going out there to try and box you, even against better boxers than him, even against some of the most dangerous punchers in MMA, like Sergey Pavlovich. You know, me and the VIP bet on Sergey Pavlovich in that fight, so I was happy to cash it, but I was actually surprised to see Waldo Cortes-Acosta take a lot of that punishment. You know, he never really seemed to be in massive trouble. You know, he never seemed to get hurt that bad. Sergey definitely, you know, had the chance, I feel like, to put it on him a little bit heavier, but Sergey was smart in that fight. Sergey was coming back off a recent loss streak himself, so I think he just wanted to get himself the win. And Waldo Cortes-Acosta, you know, put up a decent fight in my opinion. You know, I was semi-impressed after that performance, even though he lost, because I bet on Sergey. I thought Sergey would make it look a little bit easier, but it was never in doubt. You know, Sergey was the cleaner boxer. He was landing the better strikes. And to be honest, when I'm looking at it here, I feel like Cortes-Acosta probably has the boxing advantage, but I think Delija has the power advantage, and I wouldn't be surprised if Delija cracks him on the feet and knocks him out. I mean, we also bet on Delija in his fight against Marcin Tybura, his UFC debut, and he cashed in the very first round for us, you know, so we like these guys. Me and the Elite Zone like these guys specifically, and now they're fighting off against each other, and I do have a bit of a take, guys. I'm not going to lie. I'm siding with the underdog a little bit here. Ante Delija trains with the best fighters, the best heavyweight fighters in European MMA, all the way over there in my home country of England. He trains with Tom Aspinall, who currently is the UFC heavyweight champion. He's fighting Gain in a couple of days, so I don't know what's going to happen there. I think I know, but I don't actually know. So he fights with Tom Aspinall, who, by the way, that's a great training partner for Waldo Cortes-Acosta, because Tom is a great boxer and Waldo is primarily a boxer. He trains with Martin Badai. He trains with Phil de Frace. He trains with Modestas Bukauskas. I mean, it's probably the best heavyweight camp in Europe for sure. You know, all big guys, all solid guys, all very good levels, and they all do very different things. You know, Phil de Frace, very good grappler. Modestas Bukauskas, good range management, good fighter on the back foot, good kicker, great cardio, good athleticism. Tom Aspinall, extremely fast starter, hits hard, good grappler as well, great boxer with knockout ability, you know, so they're a great bunch of lads. They all help each other in different ways. I think Ante Delija is getting in great sparring. I mean, Ante Delija and Tom Aspinall are very close. Tom Aspinall actually said that, you know, he would vacate his belt if Delija was ever in line for a title shot. So, I mean, that's saying something, you know. So I feel like Delija has some advantage in this fight. Not only does he have an advantage, maybe in early knockout power, but I think he also has an advantage in top position. You know, I could see him grappling Waldo Cortes-Acosta in this fight. Waldo Cortes-Acosta did struggle with grappling before in like the Thomas Peterson fight, but I do think he's a lot better these days. You know, he's not just a boxer now. I know I've mentioned him to be a primarily boxer, which he is, but he's actually a pretty good grappler himself, and he can defend takedowns. So I don't think it's going to be easy. I think more of what you will see outside of traditional takedowns is probably cage press, probably a couple of trips, you know, probably some body lock, hugging, clinch fest up against the cage. But I do favor Ante in those positions because he's the one who always initiates those positions. So I'm going to take the underdog in this one. I'm going to take Ante Delija. I'm going to take it based on the sparring partners, based on, you know, him just being in the UFC, a little bit of career trajectory at this point in his career, very motivated in the UFC. I know he's getting in great work over there in England. I know that from inside the camp. I know people inside that camp. And I believe that he has the knockout power upside. I think he has the early upside, to do more damage early. And I think he has the grappling advantage here. That's not to say Waldo has no advantages. He does, better cardio, more UFC experience, probably better technical boxer overall. But I'm picking Ante Delija as the plus 121 underdog in this matchup. Next up, we have Phil Rowe taking on Sung Hyuk Ko. Phil Rowe coming into this fight with a record of 11 wins, 5 losses. Suk Hyun Ko coming into this fight, 12 wins, 2 losses. Ko is lined as the minus 200 favorite with the underdog price tag on Phil Rowe coming back at plus 170. First things first, Suk Hyun Ko is my mother. One of my favorite fighters on the roster because he cashed me a plus 400 ticket in his last fight against Oban Elliott. Me and the VIP, everybody in the elite zone crushed that bet. It was plus 400, but he looked minus 400. In my opinion, the best MMA bet of 2025 and one of the best MMA bets I've ever made in my career. Most likely the best bet I've ever made in my career. When you can bet on a plus 400 that looks minus 400 with no competitive exchanges at all, didn't even really get hit. I mean, arguably, it's the best MMA bet ever. At least one of them. Holly Holm comes to mind, probably the best one ever. I mean, plus 900 and she didn't get touched. But it's going to be hard to beat Ko. Ko is a very good fighter, man. Great southpaw, good range control, distance management. He reminds me of Conor McGregor on the feet. Not to say he's as good as Conor McGregor. He's actually nowhere near as good as Conor McGregor. Most people aren't. But his style, his movement, his stance, his southpaw left hand straight, these things are very reminiscent of Conor McGregor, his movement, etc., etc. The thing about Ko is he also has very, very good judo throws and judo trips, and we saw that in our Oban Elliott fight. Not only was he winning the striking exchanges, but the majority of that fight, 80% of it, was won via Ko grappling. So he's a very good grappler, very good striker, and he's just good all round. It's not easy to beat him. In his last loss, he got knocked out, unconscious. It wasn't actually unconscious. He kind of popped back up to his feet and moaned at the referee right after, but he was basically knocked unconscious. He had the guy pressured up against the cage with the striking pressure, and then the opponent sniped him, and he's usually the sniper. So his opponent sniped him, Han-Seol Kim, something like that off the top of my head, and landed a great shot, knocked him out. So he can be caught in that mid-range, that close range. He can be caught with the boxing. We know that he hasn't got the best chin of all time. Perhaps, he got knocked out by UFC alumni or someone who used to fight in the UFC, Sasha Palatnikov, who doesn't hit hard at all, doesn't have a lot of finishes. So that was kind of a bad look. But that was a long time ago, boys. You're talking about his second pro fight. So I think he's improved a lot since then. Has his chin improved? We don't really know. Ko fights over there in Korea, and he trains with the Iron Turtle, Jung Young Park, who fought on last week's fight card. So I'm expecting those two had a lot of training sessions, sparring sessions together, leading up to their fights, which was only 1 week apart. That's a decent sparring partner to have for Ko as well. Jung Young Park is a good boxer, and Phil Rowe is a good boxer as well. Different styles of boxing, but definitely a good boxer. Speaking about boxing, Phil Rowe has specifically been training under Andre Durrell for this fight camp. And if you see his Instagram right here, I mean, look at the caption. The caption literally says, "We're fighting a southpaw, doesn't matter. We brung someone in basically to replicate him." So I'm very much excited to see the boxing exchanges in this fight. Phil Rowe knows that he's going up against a southpaw. He's trained specifically for a southpaw under a very good fighter in Andre Durrell, good coach as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the boxing exchanges here. Phil Rowe is a long-range striker, to be honest. Even though he's mainly a boxer, he throws those good 1-2s down the middle. We saw it in the Ange Lusa fight last time out. He's got those little uppercuts, those shovel uppercuts, those shovel hooks, and he has some power. Ko, on the other hand, likes to stay on the outside, but he's a pretty good boxer in his own right. He has more MMA boxing than traditional boxing, I would say, and I would say Phil Rowe has more traditional boxing style. I think the most important thing in this fight, though, is the grappling prowess of Ko. Now, I've seen Ko shoot multiple takedowns, whether it's judo throws, like I mentioned earlier, trip takedowns, but also single legs and double legs. I mean, you go back and watch his Igor Cavalcante fight, and he took that guy down with double legs. He took that guy down with traditional takedowns as well, as we know he has the judo throws in his back pocket. So he's very well versed in the grappling. In the third round, he was able to win the entire round basically by grappling, whereas the first and second rounds, he won it mainly by striking. In the second round, he actually hurt Igor Cavalcante to the body. I don't know if Igor was lying or whatnot because, he killed over from the body shot, but then he threw shots himself. So I feel like he was kind of baiting Ko in. And Ko was a plus 350 underdog in that fight. And he won it clean, 30-27, just like he did against Oban Elliott. So the market keeps on disrespecting this guy. And now he's a favorite. He's been plus 400 underdog in his last two fights, but now they're making him a favorite. Do I agree? Yes, I do agree. At the end of the day, man, you go back and look at Phil Rowe's career, even his last fight, which he won, which we cashed on as well. Everyone in the Elite Zone cashed on that one. He still has the same issues as he's always had in his entire career, going back to the Gabe Green fight, which was a very early UFC fight for him, which is the guy can get grappled, man. The guy can get taken down. The guy can get dominated from top position. And he loves playing jiu-jitsu off his back, which isn't very good unless you're someone like Mackenzie Dern, unless you're someone like Charles Oliveira, and even then it could be trouble. Unless you're someone who has elite jiu-jitsu from guard, then you shouldn't really be playing off your back and trying to throw up submissions because most likely, man, the guy's not going to get submitted. He's going to pass your guard, or he's just going to do damage from guard, and you're losing minutes. More importantly, when you're on the ground on your back, you're losing minutes. You're not going to win rounds off your back in modern MMA. Maybe if you have a super tight attempt or if you're cutting him up so bad, but at the end of the day, if you're on your back for the majority of the round, you're going to lose the fight, or at least a round. And that's kind of how I see this fight playing out. I think Cole can make it competitive on the feet, if not win a lot of the striking exchanges. And outside of getting caught on the feet, I kind of feel like he's the better minute winner, to be honest, because a lot of times Phil Rowe just doesn't really do much. And then in the grappling, in my opinion, it's all Ko here. So I'm picking Ko. Again, in this fight, I'm picking Ko via clean decision, probably 30-27. In the next fight, we have Montserrat Conejo Ruiz taking on Alice Ardelean. Montserrat Ruiz coming into this fight with a record of 10-4. Alice Ardelean coming into this fight, similar, not very good record of 10-7. Currently, they have Ardelean as one of the biggest favorites on the card, which is kind of crazy, -400, with Montserrat Ruiz coming back at +300. Yeah, so if you guys don't know who Montserrat Ruiz is, she is the girl who beat Cheyenne Vlismus via one move, and she spammed the same move in every single round, and it won her each round, which is the scarf hold. She has that takedown where she gets the head, she trips you over like a judo throw, and she just stays in that scarf hold position for as long as she needs to win the round. Outside of that, she doesn't really have any other moves. And it's kind of crazy to see a fighter in the UFC who basically has one move. So we haven't seen Montserrat Ruiz for a very long time. The last time she was in the octagon was actually back in 2023, and now we're pushing 2026. I don't know why she's had such a long layoff. She has been training, I can see on her Instagram, with very good fighters such as Angela Hill, Yasmin Yaregi, Diana Barbosa, etc., etc. But I don't know why she's been out of the octagon for so long. I can't expect her to come back and have a great performance. At the end of the day, it really comes down to whether she's going to be able to get her scarf hold game going. And I don't think she will against someone like Alice Ardelean. Montserrat Ruiz is one of the smallest fighters in the entire division. She stands at 5 foot, man. A little bit shorter, she would be 4'11", which is kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy, man. Alice Ardelean's not the biggest girl of all time, but to be honest, for the division, she's pretty heavy set, man. She's pretty heavy. She's pretty solid. She's got big legs. She's a solid girl. I don't think she's going to be taken down by Montserrat Ruiz from that throw, to be honest, man. So I'm predicting Alice Ardelean to not get scarf hold, which means I'm predicting her to win the fight. She throws volume, she throws with power, and she's a tough SOB, man. She hasn't got a great record, but she's a tough girl. We saw in her last fight, as a +250 underdog, she easily beat Rayani Dos Santos. Again, me and the guys in the Elite Zone cashed on that. We actually bet Alice Ardelean, and the line moved so much that we was able to bet the other side in Rayani Dos Santos for guaranteed profit. So we did that, which was, amazing. We could watch a fight profiting no matter what happened. And she beat her ass, man, She beat her ass. Alice Ardelean was never in danger in that fight. She cleanly won it. And I kind of feel like the same's going to happen here. I feel like Montserrat will probably survive just because she's survived against some bad positions in the past. It took Amarim all the way to round 3 to finish her. It took Mora to round 2 to finish her. So I think she's like a tough girl. And Ardelean doesn't have the grappling threat of Mora or Amarim. But I wouldn't be surprised at like a late finish, attritional finish. She's been out of the octagon for a long time. I don't know, how she's going to perform now, almost 3 years away or 2.5 years away. So yeah, I got Alice Ardelean here pretty confidently. -400 is not great, to be honest, but I just can't see much upside for somebody who only has one move in the entire game of MMA, which is the scarf hold. Maybe she's on bottom at one point. Maybe she pulls guard and maybe sweeps from a leg lock. It is possible, but I haven't really seen it, man. I've only ever seen the scarf hold work for her, really. And I can't guarantee that. I can't count on that happening here at all. I got Alice Ardelean pretty confidently in this one, guys. All right, boys, now we come to a special part of the show where I'm going to give you a chance to win 1 month free to my Elite Zone. My Elite Zone is where I give all of my bets out and tell you exactly how much to stake on each bet so you can grow your bankroll just like I have done. MMA betting has completely changed my life. It's a full-time income for me, which is extremely rare in the YouTube game, in the prediction game. I don't know any other person who makes a full-time income and also makes content as well. I'm giving you a chance to get in on that for free. All you need to do is leave a good comment down below, and I'll put your name into next week's draw. I'll spin the lucrative Wheel of Fortune, and hopefully it lands on you. If you don't want to wait to next week, if you don't want to wait to compete with a couple of hundred other people, obviously you can just hit the link in the bio now to get instant access to everything today. But let's spin the Wheel of Fortune right now and see who has won. All right, lads, we are going. Spin. Look how many names there are. There's so many names spinning that I can't even read the names until it lands on it. So here we go, boys. There we are. Real D Caps. Congratulations, my man. Look at the description of this video to know how to claim your prize. And welcome to the Elite Zone. You're about to start cashing big every week from MMA betting. And like I said, boys, if you didn't win today, you can sign up right now and get instant access to all of my bets. And basically all you do is copy and paste my bets. We've made it as easy as possible for you. You copy and paste my bets, you get access to my VIP group chat. You watch the fights along with me in the group chat. We cash together. And that's it. We keep building our bankroll, just like I've been doing for the last 10 years, betting on MMA as a full-time profession. So I'll see you inside there, and let's start cashing together. But let's get to the next fight. In the next fight on the card, we have Ketlen Vieira taking on Norma Dumont. Vieira coming into this fight with a record of 15 wins, 4 losses. Norma Dumont, on the other hand, 12 wins, 2 losses. Yeah, so this one is extremely volatile, guys. I mean, Norma Dumont and Ketlen Vieira are both high-level fighters for their division. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if one of these girls is not next in line, but close in line for a title shot. I mean, Norma Dumont is in the UFC with only 1 loss by split decision against Macy Chiasson in a fight that she could have won, in a fight that the reason she lost was because of optics. She got grappled at specific times where 2 of the 3 judges decided to score some rounds against her, but she could have arguably won that fight, in my opinion. It was extremely close. Split decision was correct. And like I said, she just got out-grappled in specific scenarios. But I don't know if Ketlen's going to be able to do the same thing here. I mean, it seems to me like Norma Dumont, the way to beat her is to take her down. Because on the feet, she's very calm. She hits hard for the division. And she can be low volume at times, but unless you're a high-level striker, you're not really going to outstrike her because she has good footwork, good range control. And I will say she's pretty inconsistent in her performances. You know, sometimes she looks a lot better than others. But in general, she's going to win the jab battle. She's going to land her shots because of her range control and distance management and power and footwork better than you can, for the most part. She's a physical girl for the weight class. Her shots are going to look a little bit more damaging than your shots. And that's really what it comes down to. Macy Chiasson was able to out-grapple her at times. And I feel like Ketlen Vieira is going to do that here. You know, she won her last fight against the same opponent, Macy Chiasson, from out-grappling her. You know, she just took her down multiple times in that fight and was able to rack up top time. We know she's a very good fighter when she does get on top. And most of Vieira's wins are usually the result of her grappling her opponent, you know, out-grappling her opponent. And I feel like she has to do that here to win against Dumont. Can she do it? I'm going to side with no. Of course she can do it. Will she do it is a different question, right? A lot of these fighters have matchups that are winnable, but they just don't go out there and do the damn business. You know what I mean? So I think that Vieira can find top time here. I think it's going to be a close fight overall. I think the fight to go to decision should probably be about -700, -800, but it will probably only be about -400. So maybe there's some value in that, even though it's a massive, massive price tag. Yeah, but overall, I'm going to pick Dumont. I think she's the better striker. I think she hits harder. I think she has better range control and distance management. And I think she has the takedown defense needed to stop Vieira's takedowns. But it's a very close fight. It could definitely go either way. But I will side with Norma Dumont here. The next fight on the card, we have Isaac Dulgarian taking on Yadier DelValle. This is a banger, guys. Dulgarian coming into this fight with a record of 7 wins, only 1 loss. DelValle, a beautiful, shiny record of 9 wins and 0 losses. And he doesn't have any losses on his amateur record as well. So this guy has never been defeated in MMA, amateur or pro. But the odds makers don't care about that. Currently, they have Isaac Dulgarian as the -180 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Yadier DelValle coming back at +155. Damn, what a great matchup this is, boys. This is 2 elite prospects in the division facing off against each other very early in their UFC careers. Very similar to the Christian Rodriguez versus Isaac Dulgarian fight. And to be honest, this fight could go pretty similar to that fight, but I'm going to break it down for you. If you don't know about Isaac Dulgarian, you better get to know. This guy is the Francis Ngannou of the featherweight division. And you might be like, this guy's a wrestler. You don't know what you mean. What I mean by the Francis Ngannou of the featherweight division is that in round one, this guy is unbeatable. This guy's never lost a round one in his career. Every single fight except for 2, including his amateur fights, have been finished in round one. And even in the 2 fights where he didn't finish his opponent in round one, he dominated in round one and almost finished them. That was the Christian Rodriguez and the Brendan Marotte fight. Marotti, I believe. He dominated those guys in round one. He went on to lose the Christian Rodriguez fight via controversial split decision. Me and the Elite Zone cashed big on Christian Rodriguez that time out. Shout out to C-Rod. I feel like it was a very close fight. It comes down to round 2. Arguably 10-8 for C-Rod in round 3. Arguably 10-8 in round 1, but I don't think 10-8 in round 1. Round 2, I did lean Dulgarian, but it was close. But we got plus 200 odds, I think. So amazing bet regardless, but it was very controversial. So to be honest, he still could be undefeated. And it was the only time he faced real adversity. You know, he gassed out bad in that fight. I feel like he probably learned from that fight. I feel like he's going to take his time a little bit more. Even in the Brendan Marotti fight, he was dominating him. But I don't think he was going as balls to the wall as he did against Christian Rodriguez. You know, so I did think he learned in that fight. The thing about Dulgarian is he's very good in round 1, but he does tire out in round 2. Even in the Marotte fight, he still was such a level above Marotti that he was able to take him down and dominate him in round 2. But he still did seem to tire out a little bit in round 2, even with dominating the round and getting a finish, to be honest. So if DelValle can make him go into round 2 and round 3, we could see the tide start to turn here. And the reason I say the tide start to turn, because I really think the Dulgarian's going to dominate round 1. I really do, man. He's done it to everyone before. And really, boys, this fight comes down to, is DelValle going to be able to stop the takedowns and provide enough adversity to gas Dulgarian out or not? So what do? I go back and I watch DelValle's tape, and I've done that in a lot of fights, and I go back and look at his takedown defense. Now, in his Contender Series fight against Montero, he got taken down a couple of times there, specifically in round 1. He jumped guillotine. He done the Dustin Poirier impression. He jumped guillotine. He didn't get it. Round 1, the first one, he didn't get it at all. The second one, he was closer. He jumped guillotine. It was like a standing guillotine. He jumped, he had his legs around him in standing position. That was a lot closer, but the bell rung. So, you know, I don't know how that would have finished. I've seen him pull guillotine in, honestly, almost every fight where someone tries to go for a takedown, the guy jumps guillotine. And to be honest, he hasn't got it when I've watched it. You know, the guy does have 1 guillotine choke on his pro record and 1 guillotine choke on his amateur record. So I know he can do it. But in the fights that I've seen, he hasn't got it, you know, and he's ended up on bottom. One time he did sweep the guy, but he's ended up on bottom. It happened in the Montero fight. It happened in the Alamov fight. And I feel like if he does it here, it's going to happen here. He'll probably pull guillotine here because I've seen him do it every time. And I think he's going to get stuck on bottom from that. Maybe when Dulgarian gets tired, he could, you know, land the guillotine. But early, I don't think he's going to be able to do it. Maybe he's got, you know, improved his guillotine and he's going to be able to sweep. It's not impossible. You know, I do feel like looking at DelValle's submission prop, if it's massive, could be a decent look just because I know he's going to go for it. I know Dulgarian's going to put his head in a position to be guillotined. So just based on that alone. But I personally don't think he's going to get it, at least early. Like I said, maybe use it to sweep. But I feel like Dulgarian's smart enough to not get guillotined, to be honest, man. Like, he's so athletic. He's so aggressive with his takedowns. And he knows wrestling and grappling. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be a retard and get caught in a guillotine, at least early when he's fresh. Dulgarian is getting a lot of working at the UFC PI lately. I've seen him training with Chris Gutierrez as his main training partner for Farid Bashrat. Those guys fought a couple of weeks ago. Zalal is out there at the PI as well. Training with Mark Montoya as well. So Zalal, Chris Gutierrez, these are good training partners for Dulgarian to improve and become more of a veteran in the cage, because he definitely seems a little bit wild and aggressive even to this day after that C-Rod loss. So, you know, I expect him to age, get a little bit better, improve. But DelValle, on the other hand, he's a great fighter as well, man. Let's speak about him for a bit. He's not much of a wrestler, but this guy has submissions, as we've seen in his very last fight, as I've told you about the guillotines. And on the feet, this is one-way traffic here, man. DelValle, very good boxer, lands his shots very well. And if this gets stuck on the feet for extended periods of time, there's only going to be one winner, and that's going to be Yadier DelValle. So this is definitely a tough fight to call, guys, because I respect both of these fighters as rising prospects in the division who will go far in the UFC. I'm under no doubt in my mind that both fighters will do well in their UFC career. I'm going to go with Isaac Dulgarian here, though. The reason I side with Isaac Dulgarian is because there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be able to get takedowns early, right? There's no doubt in my mind. And to be honest, probably even in round 2 and maybe even round 3. Round 3, I'm not sure, but round 2, I'm pretty sure. I'm almost pretty certain, not as certain, but pretty certain that he's going to win round 1. right? So we've got a guy who's going to win round one, arguably do big damage in round one from top position, and he only needs to win one of the next 2 rounds and not get finished to win the fight. So that's the reason I'm going to go with Isaac Dulgarian here. I think that the wrestling advantage is massive. I've seen DelValle taken down multiple times. I've seen DelValle shoot guillotines and end up on bottom, which I don't think is going to be good for him against Dulgarian. And Dulgarian is a beast in round one and honestly can put the pace and pressure and probably finish anybody in the division. So while I'm not predicting a finish because I respect DelValle too much, I feel like it's going to be a 29-28 type fight. I think DelValle will probably come back in round 3. I think people who bet on DelValle underdog odds are going to think that they have value, and they may even have value. But I do feel like Dulgarian's going to get it done via decision in this one. And look, boys, at the end of the day, Dulgarian is Ngannou in round 1, like I said. So it could definitely be a finish, right? Don't get stuck to my decision prediction. But I am predicting it just for the sake of saying a prediction. But ultimately, I'll pick Isaac Dulgarian in this one. But it's a close fight, and DelValle definitely has outs to win. The next fight on the card, we have Timmy Cuamba facing off against Chang Ho Lee. Timmy Cuamba coming into this fight with a record of 9 wins, 3 losses. Chang Ho Lee, on the other hand, 11 wins and only 1 loss. This is a good fight, man. Both of these guys are my boys. I cashed on Timmy Cuamba in his last fight against Roberto Romero. He won via KO. There was, a questionable stoppage, but he was looking pretty decent in that fight, in my opinion. And me in the Elite Zone cashed on that one big time. We also cashed on Chang Ho Lee when he took out Cortavius Romeus inside the distance. So I believe we bet both fighters as an underdog, or at least Chang Ho Lee was only slight fave, and they both finished inside the distance. It's always good when you bet on a fighter and they win inside the distance, sweat free. And that was kind of like both their last fights. I'm a big fan of Timmy Cuamba. I bet on him again as an underdog in Dana White's Contender Series, and he went to a very close fight with Matteo Vogel. That was a war, man. I went back and watched that, and it was an absolute war. They both head kicked each other in the first round. They both hurt each other a couple of times. Vogel pushed an insane pace, but Cuamba was landing the better shots. Arguably, it could have gone either way. It was a very close fight. I did score it for Cuamba. I felt like he landed cleaner shots. He was a very good fighter, man. Like, Cuamba has got great boxing, very good hands, and he's adding some good kicking arsenal to his hands as well. The issue with Cuamba is he can be hurt. We've seen in the Vogel fight, he got cracked a little bit. Not massively hurt, but he did get cracked. In the Lucas Almeida fight, he basically lost the fight off big moments, even though he was coming back well in the 3rd round there, pushing the takedowns and just pushing the pace in general. In the Balaji Oki fight, it was a little bit lower volume, but that was upper weight class. I feel like Cuamba's very, very good. There might be something lacking, but that might just be, not getting his feet in the UFC so far. Chang Ho Lee, on the other hand, he's a very different fighter than Timothy Cuamba. Chang Ho Lee goes out there and pushes an insane pace. Very different than Cuamba. Cuamba likes to fight on the back foot at times. Very clean fight, pretty fighter. Good boxing, good head kicks, as I said. Very measured approach. Chang Ho Lee fights like a lunatic, He just pushes the clinch, pushes the pace, pushes the takedown, pushes the volume, puts himself in harm's way, which is the complete opposite to Timothy Cuamba. So something I noticed during my research is that Timothy Cuamba actually broke his hand back in June. So he's coming into this fight only 4 months from a hand break, so I'm not sure if that's going to affect him at all. It's obviously not ideal, but a lot of these fighters go in with similar sorts of injuries, coming off breaks, minute fractures and breaks 4 or 5 months before the fight. It's not super uncommon, but, it may affect him. At the end of the day, Timothy Cuamba is mainly a boxer, so I hope he's going to be able to go out there and use his full arsenal because he's going to need it against someone like Chang Ho Lee. Like I said, Chang Ho Lee is going to fight how he always does, which is push the pace, push the pressure, try to break Timothy Cuamba. I haven't necessarily ever seen Timothy Cuamba break. Matteo Vogel did the exact same game plan that Chang Ho Lee will implement, although I believe Chang Ho Lee may implement a little bit more of a grappling game plan, but still the pace and pressure will be very similar. And Vogel, in my opinion, comparable matchup to Chang Ho Lee. But like I said, the grappling may be pushed a little bit more in this fight. Timothy Cuamba has good grappling. A lot of times he's actually winning the grappling scenarios himself. He was able to even take down Balaji Oki, who's a very strong physical 155er. So I was actually impressed with that. I tend to think this is going to be a grueling fight, a tough fight for both combatants. But I do believe that Timothy Cuamba is going to be able to defend the takedowns. I do believe that Timothy Cuamba is going to definitely be able to land the better shots on the feet. Like I said, he can be a little bit hittable just because he doesn't have the best head movement, but I don't think Chang Ho Lee is on the level of striking of Timothy, so I'm expecting Timothy to land the better shots on the feet. I've seen Chang Ho Lee drop before, so I wouldn't be surprised if Timothy is able to drop him. Much better striker, better kicks, definitely better boxing, better footwork, much better footwork, better range and distance control. I think Timothy's better overall, by far, to be honest. I just don't know how he's going to handle the pace and pressure of Chang Ho Lee. I think the very best scenario is that Timothy knocks him out. But outside of that, I think it's going to be a close fight because Chang Ho Lee is never not going to be in a close fight unless you finish him. You go back and look at that split decision against Long Zhao. What a great fight that was. I mean, that was a very back and forth fight. 70% of that fight was in the clinch. Go back and watch that if you want to see some real good clinch fighting. That was a very good display of clinch fighting and pace and pressure from both fighters. I tend to think Timothy's going to be ready for this war, but it's not easy to prepare for somebody like Chang Ho Lee. So it's definitely a tough pick. But I'm going to side with Timothy Cuamba getting this one done. I believe that he'll probably have a big moment or two. Whether that lands a KO, I'm not sure. But I do think he'll probably rock and hurt Chang Ho Lee like he does to most of his opponents. And I'd say that Chang Ho Lee comes back and wins a round with grappling pace and pressure, but he loses the majority of the other rounds, and he loses a close, competitive decision. So Timothy Cuamba is the pick. Moving on, and we have Kevin Christian taking on Billy Elekana. Christian coming into this fight with a record of 9 wins, 2 losses. Elekana has a very similar record, 8 wins, 2 losses. Currently, they have Billy Elekana as the -175 favorite with the underdog price tag on Kevin Christian coming back at +150. First things first, boys, I was looking at my odds screen and Billy Elekana was -180. Now he's -175. So some money is coming in on Kevin Christian. And to be honest, boys, I don't understand why, man. I go back and look at Kevin Christian's career. This guy is probably one of the worst fighters I've watched. And I don't say that to be disrespectful because there has to be a worse fighter in the UFC. Do you know what I mean? Like there has to be someone who's at the bottom. And I feel like Kevin Christian maybe not be the worst, but he's definitely like in that realm. I mean, the guy has some power because he's 6'7" and throws insane wide swinging hooks, but I don't think he's very good on the feet at all. He doesn't use his long range weapons well. I've seen him throw high kicks and push kicks when his opponent's very, very tired, gassed out, and just retreating. But outside of that, he doesn't really use those long range weapons at all, which is crazy for a 6'7" guy. To be honest, Kevin Christian does his best work when he's on bottom, with his triangle chokes, with his elbows from guard. And I mean, if you're 6'7" and your primary way to win is via triangle choke on the ground, it's not a good look in my opinion, boys. Billy Elekana, on the other hand, he's way more well put together. Southpaw striker, pretty good straight hand down the middle, won't do much if he doesn't need to. That Ibo Aslam fight was kind of a bad look for both guys, but Elekana was kind of clearly outstriking him to some degree. He was landing that straight hand, landing that jab, landing at 1-2. Not really, to be honest. He was just really throwing the 2, landing that push kick. That was a bad showing from both guys. Nothing happened in that fight, but he did win. Maybe he was a little bit worried and scared after his Guskov performance, where he kind of gave up in round 2 there. He got choked. He kind of just ended up sitting down up against the fence and just got choked out there. But I got Billy Elekana. I mean, he looked good in that first round of that fight, and that was his UFC debut, so I give him a pass. And in his second fight, he won kind of easily, to be honest. Even though nothing happened. You look at Kevin Christian, he's making his UFC debut. I don't know why Dana White signed him for the Contender Series. He got easily out-grappled in the first round by that Irish guy. Got taken down, grappled easily. Did do some good damage from bottom position. Cut his opponent open, was throwing up submissions and was throwing up elbows and stuff like that. So I guess shout out to him there. Like I said, that is his best attribute, his guard game, which is crazy. He's like a Paul Craig, 6'7", only good from guard. And then in round 2, he was able to find a submission, from guard again, But that was because his opponent completely gassed out. And I don't know why his opponent gassed out, because nothing really much happened in that fight. It's like after round 1, he was kind of gassed out from sitting in top position and taking elbows. And when he gassed out, he shot him for a sloppy takedown. He did get the takedown, but then Christian was able to, submit him with a triangle choke. If you go back and look at some of this guy's regional scene fights, namely the fight against Miguel Porto, this fight was one of the sloppiest fights I've ever seen, right? And it was his fight in LFA before he got on a Contender Series. Let's watch this one together, boys, because look, this is such a chaotic fight. Like, there is no semblance of defense at all from either of these guys in this fight. And he actually ends up finishing this fight just going rabies mode, which was kind of impressive, to be honest, because he looked to be fully gassed out in that fight. But at the end of the day, man, I can't watch that fight and say this guy's UFC level. I mean, it's a sloppy fight against a guy with a 4-1 record. Elekana should win this fight all day to me. I don't see how Elekana wins outside of getting submitted from a triangle choke or an armbar, or, this guy just high rolls a crazy flying knee or something like that. So I got Billy Elekana in this one, boys. It should be an easy fight, to be honest. I will give Kevin some credence. He's such a wild, hectic guy at 6'7". He could pull something out of his ass, but yeah, I got Billy in this one. The next fight on the card is Talita Alencar versus Ariane Carnelossi. Alencar coming into this fight with a record of 6 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. Ariane Carnelossi coming into this fight with a record of 15 wins and 3 losses. So almost triple the amount of experience for Carnelossi. The bookmakers don't care about that though, as they have Talita Alencar, the minus 310 favorite with the underdog price tag on Ariane Carnelossi coming back at plus 260. Yeah, interesting fight, boys, because I feel like Carnelossi, is not a tough opponent for people, but she's very, very scary woman for the division. She has crazy muscles, look like she's been training for bodybuilding her entire life. She hits pretty hard. She has good cardio, and she's going to walk you down and throw heavy shots. The issue really with her game is that she has no takedown defense, man, and she just walks forward into punches. She doesn't really have any striking defense. She just got a lot of power. She's kind of like Jessica Andrade, minus a lot of the skills, to be honest. That's what she reminds me of, which is not great to be, because Andrade, if you don't have skills and you're Andrade, you ain't really got too much else. But if she's got no takedown defense or poor takedown defense and poor get-up game, she's not going to do well in this matchup against Talita Alencar. Ariane Carnelossi has 14% takedown defense, right? And that's on UFC stats. That is a terrible, terrible record. I mean, it's one of the worst I've ever seen, 14% takedown defense. Even fighters with poor takedown defense, like they're usually about 35, 40%, something like that. I mean, 14% is horrific, right? She got taken down by Na Liang 3 times. She got taken down 8 times by Lupita Godinez. She got taken down by Piero Rodriguez in her last fight, got dropped in that fight, got beat up in that fight as well. She had a miracle win from a disqualification. She was getting battered in that fight. It wasn't a competitive fight. And now she's going up against Talita Alencar, who's one of the best wrestlers / grapplers in the entire division. How do you think it's going to go? Talita's just going to take her down at will, man. I mean, I feel like she's tougher than Talita. I think like she would push. She hits way harder, maybe has better cardio. I feel like her will to win is a little bit higher, but the skills are just not there, guys. I got Talita Alencar in this one. Talita's getting great training in with a good striker in Ariane Lipski and Jacqueline Amarim, a great grappler. So she's got like one of the best jiu-jitsu fighters in the world training with her, and she's got a good, decent UFC level striker training with her as well. She actually trains under Lipski's husband, Renato Rasta, whatever. She trains under her, so I feel like she's got better training partners than Carnelossi. I've seen her doing some training at the UFC PI, but she isn't training with some of the best fighters in the world like Ariane Lipski and Jacqueline Amarim. So I got Talita Alencar here, man. I think she's going to get her takedowns at will. And even if she struggles to get takedowns a little bit because of the physicality, one takedown is probably a round here. Alencar has very good top control. We've seen that in all of her fights, even going back to the Stephanie Luciano fight, which is a draw. And we know Luciano is on a streak now, and Luciano did come back and beat her, but she still displayed good grappling in that first fight. And then in her last fight against Vanessa Demopoulos, I mean, she looked minus 900, and it was a pick'em. So she clearly has high-level grappling for the division. So, yeah, I got Alencar to win this one, probably via decision because Carnelossi is very tough. It's not easy to finish her. And Alencar prefers position over submission. But, with the skill gap, the submission isn't completely out of the realm of possibility, But, yeah, I'm definitely going to pick Talita Alencar in this one. The next fight on the card, we have Charles Radtke versus Daniel Frunza. Charles Radtke coming into this fight with a record of 10 wins, 5 losses. Daniel Frunza, on the other hand, 9 wins, 3 losses. So first things first on this fight, boys, it's like this is just a close competitive striking matchup. I think somebody's probably going down. If they set the under 1.5 or 2.5 at some decent price, I'll probably smash that line. I can't see it being set at a decent price. I think these guys are just going to go to war, man. Charles Radtke has an amazing left hook. That's his signature weapon. That's his main weapon. He's done a lot of damage with it in the UFC. We see him use it on Matthew Semmelsberger. We see him KO Gilbert Urbina with it. We've seen him spam it against Blood Diamond Mike Mateja. And although that fight went to a decision, he hurt Mike multiple times with the left hook. I feel like sometimes he overextends and overshoots the left hook because he knows it's such a powerful weapon. Sometimes he just spams it. Alex Pereira does the same thing at times. I've seen him fights where he's just, spamming the left hook so it's a little bit readable. So I would like to see him set up the left hook a little bit better at times, but it's definitely his main weapon, so I could see why he likes to go to it. And to be honest, even when he spammed it, a lot of times it still does land. Like in that Blood Diamond fight, a lot of times he would just lead hook and he wasn't even setting out, but it was still landing, man. I think Charles Radtke has the grappling upside here, so I'll be interested to see if he tries to implement a wrestling game plan. He's done it in a couple of his fights where he's tried to push the takedowns. He's had some success in some fights. He hasn't had some success. And I do feel like he has the upside here. Frunza doesn't have much off his back. I've seen him taken down and smashed on the ground a couple of times. Frunza is a tough motherfucker. He had a good fight with Talunzic in LFA. Both fighters threw a lot of shots there. Both fighters got hit in that fight. He also had a tough fight with Kutsi, I believe that's how you say his name, in LFA again. And then against McKee, that was definitely a tough fight. You know, he actually got stopped via doctor stoppage. He got dropped about 4 times in the first round. Me and the Elite Zone were on the under there. It looked like, honestly, one of the best bets I've ever made. It just looked so free. And it was actually stopped via doctor stoppage. Who knows what would have happened in round 2 and round 3, because Daniel Frunza got dropped a million times, but he was able to recollect himself and he was coming back in that. He may have come back in that fight. You know what I mean? McKee was half tired out just from beating him so bad. And after seeing McKee fade in round 3 against a lighter guy, Axel Solar, I wouldn't have been surprised if Frunza come back and did some damage there, even though he looked completely outmatched in round 1. That's how crazy MMA is. So I feel like Frunza is just a little bit more tested and proven in a war. And yeah, it's just going to be a tough fight. I don't necessarily have a strong read on this one. I'm just going to pick the underdog in this one. I'm a gambler at the end of the day. I'm a sports bettor, and Daniel Frunza at plus 120. He's the underdog. I feel like this is a very close fight, so I'm going to go with Daniel Frunza for the win here. In the next fight on the card, which is the first fight on the card, which is a fight I definitely have a big opinion on, so you definitely want to hear it. We got Donte Johnson taking on Sedriques Dumas. Johnson coming into this fight with a record of 6 wins, 0 losses. Sedriques Dumas, on the other hand, has a record of 10 wins and 3 losses. Currently, they have Johnson as the big favorite, minus 260 odds, with the underdog price tag on Sedriques Dumas coming back at plus 220. So first thing to note about this fight is Donte Johnson's coming into this fight after just winning in the first round on the Contender Series at heavyweight, where he weighed 209 pounds for a heavyweight contest. Now, he's taking a fight on his UFC debut at middleweight. So a 2 weight class jump, and the biggest 2 jumps you can make, which is middleweight to light heavyweight and then light heavyweight to heavyweight. So I'm excited to see him at middleweight. He's not fought a middleweight in his entire career. He's fought a heavyweight or light heavyweight, even in amateur fights. It's funny because he used to almost max out the heavyweight limit at 260 pounds, and now he's going to make 185 pounds. I feel like this is definitely his right weight class, because even some of those fights where he did look 260 pounds, he didn't look healthy. He looked overweight. He looked extremely fat. And in one of those fights, he got brutally knocked out by a head kick in a fight that he was kind of winning easily, to be honest. But that was his only loss. Undefeated pro and only 1 amateur loss. Like I said, that was a head kick. But he shouldn't have been fighting at heavyweight. He shouldn't be getting head kicked by heavyweights, because he shouldn't be fighting there, you know. I am interested to see how his cut's going to go. I personally think his cut's going to be fine, just because he is a middleweight. He's a 5'8" fighter. 5'8" heavyweight is absolutely ridiculous. You're talking Chris Barnett style. You know what I mean? It's not natural. I can't show you this now because the story has expired, but I saw on his Instagram stories that about 2 days ago, but when you see this, it will be about 5 days ago when you see this video. Because as I said, I record this extremely early for you guys to try and give you early breakdowns. So, you know, we can beat the line, so you can get some good content early. But I did see on his Instagram stories that he was at 191 pounds at about, let's call it 10 days before the fight, which is great, to be honest. So I don't think he's going to have any issues making 185. He looks jacked on Instagram. He looks very lean. He looks in great shape. So I think we're going to get a good Donte Johnson here. The only issue I have with the weight is, like, now he's moving down and he's fighting guys who are extremely fast, you know, and his whole style was basically built on being the faster guy up at heavyweight and light heavyweight. You look at some of his fights and he is so much faster than these guys, man. I actually think Donte Johnson's a good fighter, honestly. I just think he's an effective fighter. I don't know how good he is, but he's an effective fighter. He used to wrestle at heavyweight, so I feel like, you know, wrestling-wise, he's going to do pretty well fighting middleweight fighters because he's used to wrestling massive bodies, you know, and that definitely matters in grappling. And on the feet, he's kind of vicious, man. He has brutal hooks. He switches stances all the time, which is very unusual for a heavyweight fighter. You know, now he's a middleweight. He switches stances consistently, has power in both the left and the right hand. I've seen him knock people out with lead hooks, and I've seen him knock people out with rear hooks. You know, I've seen him knock people out with both hands. I've seen him hurt people with both hands. Most of his knockouts have come in round 1. Most of his wins, I should say, have come in round 1. All of his wins in the pro ranks have come in round 1, and a couple of his amateur fights did go to a decision, but it showed us that he could at least go, you know, a solid 9 minutes there. Amateur fights are 3-minute rounds for the most part, so that's why I said 9 minutes. But I actually like Donte Johnson, man. I like his movement. I like his speed. I like his power. I like his striking IQ. You can just see that he knows how to strike. He's very calm in there, patient. And I feel like he's going to go into this fight, walk his opponent down like he does in every fight, and knock him out. Sedriques Dumas is coming into this fight, and I've spoke about Sedriques a lot, boys. Sedriques is not right mentally. You know, he spoke about it himself. Sedriques is not right mentally. He's been arrested about 25 times. He's still getting arrested while an active UFC fighter, consistently getting arrested. You know, he's got bail orders. He's training for his last fight with an ankle monitor on. He's kicking the pads with an ankle monitor. I mean, this guy is not right in the head. I hope that he gets better. But this guy's smoking weed all the time, smoking weed in interviews. Like, he's not all there mentally, in my opinion, man. And you have to be mentally right going into a contest, especially against someone like Donte Johnson, who is going to hit you very hard in the face, man. And if he hits you very hard in the head, you might just quit. You know, the Michelle Oleksiejczuk fight is kind of a similar type of style to what Donte Johnson has, where he's going to walk you down. He has heavy hands, good hooks, used to fight at a higher weight class. Now he's cut weight. Like, I feel like we're going to see the Michelle Oleksiejczuk fight again. You know, I feel like it's going to be a round 1 knockout for Donte Johnson, like all of his other fights. The only upside I give to Sedriques Dumas is maybe Sedriques Dumas can now match the speed, because Sedriques is actually pretty fast for the weight class. And Donte's not going to be used to that. So I'm very excited to see how that pans out, the speed element. And also the high kicks. Sedriques Dumas does have good high kicks. He was spamming them against Michelle Oleksiejczuk. He did throw them against Zach Ruiz, where he come out of a bit of a different game plan, where he's bouncing in and out of range like Conor McGregor. I don't think that's a great style for him, but it does make him a little bit elusive, at least early. You know, and he does throw those high kicks fast. So, like I said, we have seen Donte caught with a high kick before, but yeah, I think outside of that, man, Donte's just going to be too tough for him, too big for him, too strong for him, hit too hard, too patient, too calm. And that's it, man. I got Donte Johnson to walk through Sedriques Dumas after a couple of minutes of maybe getting leg kicked and kicked in the body and maybe jabbed and outlanded a little bit. Donte's going to finally get his range and land big hooks on Sedriques Dumas and probably put him out cold, man. It could be a brutal knockout, and I'm taking Donte Johnson all day. So that's it, boys. I really appreciate you watching the video. Click subscribe if you want to watch the next one. And as I say, the link in my bio is there if you want to see how MMA betting changed my life. And that's it. Good luck on your bets. Let's try and keep the win streak up, boys. Peace.